Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beverly Neighborhood News. A 12-day teacher strike, nearly 2 whole weeks, has officially come to an end. This was one for the history books, being one of the longest strikes in the state's recent memory. The Beverly Teachers Association kicked it off fighting for better pay, fair wages for paraprofessionals, more paid family leave. Now, let's be real. This isn't easy on anyone. Schools were shut down, students and families had their routines flipped upside down, and the community definitely felt the strain. But after some intense back and forth at the negotiating table, an agreement was finally reached just before Thanksgiving. The new deal means teachers are getting a pay bump and extra professional development time, so at least there's some positive news coming out of all of this. Now that the dust has settled, the schools are back open and the focus is shifting to getting things back on track for students. To ensure that students make up for the lost instructional time, as well as fulfilling the state law of 180 school days, the school committee voted to modify the current calendar for the upcoming winter and spring months. As a result, students will attend school on Saturdays, extend the school year late into June, and give up the February vacation. Students will attend school one Saturday each month from January through May. Also, schools will be open on December 23rd. Additionally, 2 extra days will be added to the end of the school year in June. So let's all hope there are no school closings this winter. As winter approaches, Beverly is preparing for the inevitable snow season. With temperatures mostly mild, the first flakes are inevitable. Local officials, businesses, and residents are gearing up to handle what could be a fairly mild winter, according to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Even still, we know strange things happen weather-wise on the North Shore. Beverly will be ramping up their snow removal plans. Public Works departments are making sure they have enough equipment and manpower in place to clear the streets as quickly and safely as possible. If you live or work downtown area, you should check out the blue lights on top of the traffic lights. Not every traffic light has them, so check for a few. For alternative parts to park legally in, go to Beverly's official website, which is magically at the bottom of the screen. But it's not just city crews preparing. Local stores are stocking up on essentials like shovels, ice melt, and snowblowers. On the ice melt, if you have pets that go outside, please make sure your ice melt is pet-friendly without any of the dangerous chemicals. It may cost a few dollars more, which is nothing for a family member. Now would also be a good time to fire up your snowblower and make sure it's in perfect running order. You don't want to get caught with your snow pants down.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. Those 9 months were also 273 days of planning. What about your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. And let's not forget those barbecues you plan in detail for your family and your more vegetarian by the day best friends. That surprise party for your parents' golden anniversary? You get the golden planning. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
I had the pleasure of doing a walkthrough with Tim Flaherty, the executive director of the YMCA of the North Shore, to see the renovations and learn a little bit about what is coming up for the Y on Essex Street. Enjoy the tour, and we will be back right after.
Hi, I'm Tim Flaherty, the Executive Director of the Greater Beverly Y. We're at the Sterling Center in a new community locker room. I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of our Y and our new community locker room and show you the pool. We just renovated that this past summer. We have new lockers that are for the community going in here. They're all digital, so you don't have to have a lock. bring a lock with you. They're all right here. They have a whole bunch all along the corridor here. They'll make it easier for people who don't want to go in the locker room and just want to put their bag in there and go play basketball and go for a swim. Let's go take a look inside. So, as you come in here, brand new open space. There are, as we come in here, there are 12 wet showers in here that have a toilet, a sink, and a shower in there. As you come in through here, here's one of the spaces right here. We have, come in here, all these spaces here. We also have handicap accessibility throughout this facility, which is nice, which is one of the major reasons why we did that. Everything is ADA compliant. And so as we come through here, this hallway, if you come down here, this leads right out to the pool. And we'll go out there, we'll go out to the pool in a second. But if you take a right here, here are some more lockers. Again, there's 12 individual showers that act as like little locker rooms with plenty of lockers along the space in the sitting space. And as you move down here, another common area, we have some swimsuit spinners, so make sure your swimsuit is nice and dry. But another community space in here, so people need to, dry their hair or wash their hands. But you also have 4 bathrooms here as well, and a shower. And then we also have 3 changing areas. So if you just want to change and not go to the bathroom, you have that luxury of doing so. So what we did is we converted our boys and girls room and our family locker room into one shared space, and it's going to be ideal. It kind of gets us into the 21st century and trying to meet the needs of the community of Beverly, Hamilton, Wenham, and Manchester. It's been well received. We just opened this past Monday, and people are really excited about having the space in here. And actually, in April 14th to be exact, we'll be converting our men's and women's room, we'll be renovating those, and we'll have that should be done by June. We'll have a new women's room and a new men's room, and that will complete the major renovation process for the locker rooms. What we should do is I'll take you a quick look out to the pool that we renovated this past summer.
Now, Tim, are the men's and ladies' locker rooms, are they going to be a similar concept to the common area with the showers and the lockers with the codes?
No, actually what they're going to do is have it renovated. This is the reason why there are individual lockers here, because it's a shared space for your families coming in here with their children, and you have adults. So this way, as you look at this, it's basically 12 locker rooms within a locker room. At this community space, and then you have the 3 changing areas and 4 bathrooms. So it's going to be basically what that is being done. You're fixing the shower areas, you're removing the saunas, what I'll talk about in a second, so they're ADA compliant and it's safer for everybody. And then you're going to be having a new floor and a new bathroom area that is updated again for the 21st century that can meet the needs of everybody. So as you come out to our new renovated pool area here, all this is done over. We have a new air handling system up here, which is a great pipe above us, which creates better air quality than it was before. And the idea of a new ceiling, new paint, all new tile on the floor was really the last time this was renovated was 20 years ago. So to be able to have this facility on here is amazing. The air handler is probably the biggest part of this whole project. The air quality in here has been immense.
Tell me about those bikes.
So those bikes are aqua fitness bikes. They go into the pool, and that's brand new as well. And people who have exercise, there's such a demand for it. You need to get more bikes. They go in the shallow end, and they just have it's like a spin class in the water. One of the other things I want to show you over here, which we haven't had before, that they're renovating right now, the process just finishing, is that we're going to have a bathroom on the pool deck, handicap accessible as well. So instead of going into the locker rooms, it's easier for parents, easier for the senior citizens coming in and out of here. It makes a big difference. As you swing over here to the left here, this is under renovation too, which will be completed by Christmas. These are our new saunas, men's and women's saunas, that are going to be on the pool deck. That, again, will be all ADA compliant, which the other ones were not. and so it's accessible to all, and it'll be safer for everybody that's using the saunas as well. They're going to be the same saunas that are in there now that will be a benefit for men and women. I'd also like to mention is here, we also have new showers that are on the pool deck. One that's handicap accessible, which is here to the left, and the rest that are along here. And that just makes it easier. Again, everybody's supposed to take a shower before they go in, you know, with all the soap and lotions or whatever to make it cleaner in the pool. But it's also a better environment to have your showers in here instead of going into a locker room. So again, another added benefit for our members. Added feature is, like I talked about, we have many locker rooms within this community locker room, which makes it safe for all that are using it. We actually have these windows in the front doors and the back door. We also have these windows here so people can see from the main part of the building and all the way through the pool and vice versa. It just makes it easier for people who are all using it, whether it be teenagers, whether it be senior citizens. It just makes it a safer environment for all. Another great feature that we added is our mother's room, which we didn't have before. So you actually have a table for the mothers to come in here. There's a seat here. We're going to be getting another table here. And also we have many of these. I'm sure moms and dads know this, and put the little one on here to change their diaper. We actually have them in the community locker room, but we also have here in the mother's room. Another added feature to meet the community needs. So right here we have our holiday tree. Every year we have families that are in need, and this is called a giving tree. So after families that come in here, or individuals come here and put an unwrapped gift in our sled here, and that will go to children in need this holiday season. But the deadline to bring it in is December 16th, as you can see right here on the thing. We have all these little bells here that kind of explain what the kids need, and we give away hundreds upon hundreds of gifts for the kids and our programs and people in the community. I'm glad we could get together today to let the community know what we've been doing since June, renovating our pool, which hasn't been renovated in 20 years, and then our new community locker room, and then in the future, in April, we'll be doing our men's and women's rooms, as we talked about. It's very exciting to be part of the Greater Beverly Y that can make a difference and meet the needs of the community. And we actually, last summer, we also renovated our early learning center, which is our preschool, and our sports center. We have about 200 kids in our preschool, and that is state-of-the-art facility that we're very, very proud of. You know, all these great facilities, but they're not great facilities without the people in them. You know, we have over 14,000 members and program people here throughout the year, and we're growing and trying to meet the needs of the community. In fact, we've been meeting the needs of the community since 1892. That's how long this Y's been, this nonprofit Y has been here for many, many years. And we weren't born in 1985, and we're going to be here. I was born and bred here in Beverly, and I'm very proud of the work we're doing here. In fact, we gave away $1 million. Just let that sink in. $1 million. About people in our after-school program, our preschool. A quarter to a half of those people in those programs are in some kind of financial assistance, or people who are senior citizens coming in here struggling. We're able to offer them a membership, or be able to use the programs, or utilize the bikes that you saw in the pool, or anything that we do here. Again, meeting the needs from aquatics to gymnastics to preschool. We do a lot of great things to try to that we're very proud of, as you can tell. And again, we've been doing that since 1892. So we're not going anywhere, and I'm really glad to share these renovations with you, and more to come as we move into the future. Again, our main goal is to meet the community needs and do the best job we can for everybody involved. And thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
It is very cool, all the North Shore YMCA has been doing, and they aren't slowing down. More renovations are coming. Next up is a very interesting discussion I had with Ryan Reed of Rewatchable right here in Beverly about the state of media and how it is consumed. Take a look.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to kick off with is I was doing some research on this, and it was astonishing to me the number of
percentage of people that are getting their news digitally versus newspaper. The old ink. What do you think that percentage is now currently?
60-40?
60-40 in the way of digital?
Digital, yeah.
Yeah, it amazes me that it's not. It's in fact only about 21%. But over the past 5 years, it has been shooting up.
Wow.
I think a big part of that is USA Today and the hotel rooms.
Ah, yes.
They are the third largest circulation paper in the United States, and that has to be why.
The official source of news that you step on.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
You step
on your way out of the room.
and walk over, exactly. But the other stat that is even more wild and is more germane to our conversation today is the percentage of people that at least get some of their news from social media. What do you think that number is? They at least get some of their news over social media.
I'm guessing this is going to be frighteningly high. I mean, who was 75?
It's a lot lower than that. It's just still scary
Yeah.
to me. It's 54%.
54%.
54%.
But that includes everybody, right?
That includes a survey of
Yeah.
the United States. I find that frightening.
Yeah.
And
Any number, a non-zero number is pretty terrifying there.
Yeah. Where do you think the other 46% of those folks are getting their news from?
Cable news.
Cable news?
Cable news. Or network news. Network news and cable news. That would be my guess.
Do you think that only people who are, for example, only conservatives are watching Fox and Newsmax, and only more liberals / progressives are watching MSNBC and, to a point, CNN?
My guess would be as soon as you get
Is there any
off
crossover?
If as soon as you get off the coast, I think it's going to be network news largely. That's my guess.
Would you say network news is mostly down the middle?
No, but making a better attempt than cable news.
Right.
Cable news is, I think, clearly not trying to go down the middle.
And they don't hide it.
No.
They don't seem to hide it.
No.
And they always complain about the mainstream media as if they're not mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Fox News has been around since the 90s. That's as fairly mainstream as you can get. But there are some YouTube channels that are actually getting more views than Fox News these days that are not down the middle. And I think people gravitate towards, given the algorithms, people are gravitating. If you start watching a bunch of liberal guys, everything that comes up in your feed is going to be liberal guys.
For sure.
Yeah.
They want you to watch more. And so they're going to show you more of what you've watched. I think that's inherent in the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah. It's almost difficult. I personally, I like to I try to get both. I actually do watch some Fox News, and I do watch some, of the more liberal, the MSNBCs and the CNNs and all that. And then obviously there's the YouTubers that have the most, Brian Tyler Cohen's, the Midas Touch Network, those guys that are, in the millions of followers that are more on the liberal side. I feel like, tell me what your thoughts are on the level of informed our nation is. Like if knowing everything about current events was a 10, knowing nothing about current events was a 0, where do you think the general average populace would be?
2, 3?
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I could guess much more higher than that. But sadly, I think you might be right.
Well, what is news ultimately? I think that's an important question to start with. Is news the largest thing happening in the world, nation, local at any given moment? Where does politics fit into that? You've gone straight to politics, and I think it's interesting that you cited some highly political sources in your list. My personal policy is I'm only going to the fringe sources on the left and the right when I hear something crazy and I want to try to get an idea of how real or not real or crazy something is. So if I hear someone say something and I'm like, that doesn't jive with what I know,
reality,
then I'll go look at the Fox News, I'll go look at OAN or Newsmax, or I'll go look at the super liberal podcast world. And I think it's become my sort of less of a fact check, but a crazy check.
Is it one of those, you got over here, and then the truth is somewhere
here?
No, not necessarily.
No.
Not necessarily. I think it's because I think when you look at the quality of news online, I think, in my opinion, I've seen two really interesting divergences where neoconservative media tends to be factually incorrect and will just say nonsense, but say it enough that people think there's something to it. So it's conspiratorial in nature.
The Streisand effect.
Similar, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you say something enough times and eventually part of it becomes true in the zeitgeist, right? Whereas I think the bias that I see in liberal and even centrist news sites tends to be more in selectivity bias. So what they tell you, what stats they provide you with. So they're very different. They're both skewed, but in very, very different ways.
And I think I did go to politics right off the bat because that seems to be the most polarizing topic in our
social media, cable news. Politics is where the division happens, right?
And you get a lot of headlines that people will just read off Facebook and take it as fact.
Absolutely.
Just from the headline.
Absolutely.
They won't click on the story.
No, or do a quick Google search to see if the story is correct.
Right. That one extra 5-second step is not going to be.
No, and I think even short form video, and I make videos for a living. Short form video is people accept things as true from a quick video because video feels more real than text, I think, for a lot of people now, which is a weird thing to say. But short form video is making that worse, in my opinion.
I think a lot of people, the reason why that is a lot of people see it said from someone's mouth and can say, I heard it from his mouth.
Well, they surely checked that before they said something to a camera.
We don't know what's coming from his mouth, but it definitely came from his mouth.
Right. And you can have, that echo chamber effect of all of the algorithms in question only amplifies that, where you can see things online where if you go down a rabbit hole, they'll all be citing the same iffy source. But if you hear it from 30 people, a colleague and I were talking about the alien stuff that came out last week. And you do a little bit of digging, and there was a congressional hearing, but a congressional hearing, when you start to look a little bit deeper, doesn't necessarily mean that it's an authoritative fact. It means that someone said something in front of Congress people.
Right.
So, but, there are people online in these short form videos saying, conclusively, the government has said that these are real and this is happening, and that they live under the ocean. So it's you have to become your own fact checker in 2024 and 2025.
And that's the thing about the populace being uninformed is that you have to be your own fact checker before you could trust.
I don't go with uninformed. I go with misinformed.
Okay.
I think people are still gathering information, and the internet is beautiful for people gathering information at a rate that we've never seen before. It's the quality of information that's the problem.
And the sources, of course.
Sources are the worst they've ever been, some of them intentionally.
Yes.
And I think the ability for a normal, sane person to fact check is getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
10 years ago, if you did a quick Google search, the top 2 results would give you the actual fact. You might have to go down the page a little bit now.
You may have to click more at the bottom of the page.
To get to the heart of a story, yeah.
Right. The other thing I find interesting is that people are believing things, and then get to a point where, wait, maybe this isn't true. And I'll give you an example. Tariffs. November 5th to November 13th, the amount of searches for what are tariffs spiked astronomically on Google.
Yeah.
People didn't know right up until the election what tariffs were. That's frightening to me.
It is and it isn't to me. Because number one, a lot of, I think, the Trump campaign's success came from appealing to people's emotions. Just like the same people who voted for Donald Trump in this election cycle, they didn't really care that the wall didn't get built. And they're not going to really care that there won't be mass deportations or tariffs. I think, it's a feeling more than I think it's an intellectual, issue-based, concrete thing around events. Mm-hmm. So will there be tariffs? Maybe, but probably not. And probably not anywhere near the severity that has been publicized. But the goal was to get people riled up.
Yeah. What about people who have a clear bias owning media companies? I'm talking about Elon Musk buying Twitter so he could save free speech. Yet my Twitter feed, which was pretty balanced on who I follow, all of a sudden became every single one was on one side. And I couldn't find, I would have to do a physical search to find the people that I was following. So, I mean, algorithm, that's not just a word to throw around. That's no joke.
Is social media is, I think, the point that you're getting to.
Yes.
And should social media face the same journalistic scrutiny that other traditional sources of media, print, even TV, are subject to, or at least we think that they're subject to, but they're decreasingly subject to.
Right.
I think the argument will always be made by the technology people that they're providing a platform, and that your behavior is dictating what the platform gives. I think everyone kind of knows that that's not true.
Yeah.
We've all talked about cat litter and then had cat litter ads come up.
Exactly.
So I think, judging social media and giving it the scrutiny of traditional media is a big reach.
Yeah.
But one that you should be aware of as a user. We need to be more proactive as consumers. I think asking Elon Musk and X to stop it is silly.
Right.
And even putting legislation around it is silly.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to go to now. I mean, the FCC at this point, has it become a feckless institution, given the fact that their major concern and their major directive was for over-the-air content?
Never for veracity, always for decency. So if you,
Excellent point.
There's a critical argument happening right now in government and media, which is lying protected by the First Amendment? Do you need to tell the truth if you're engaged in media practice? And I don't think we've come to an answer as a country or society yet.
Well, I think legally the fact is no.
Right.
Like, no, you don't have to tell the truth.
No.
We've seen that we see that every single day.
Yep.
On both sides. I think but the other thing is a lot of lies by omission.
Right.
That's the thing that gets people.
I think that's what's created that term mainstream media.
Yes.
It is the selectivity bias that you see within the mainstream media of what's painted as being most important, most urgent. It used to be, when cable media was first born, if it bleeds, it leads. So crime, war, things like that. But politics drive more eyeballs now. So you have to choose what you show and how much of it you show.
Why are people so engaged now in politics? Is it because of all of the avenues that we can get our news from, all of the different, is social media driven that? Because I mean, we're close to the same age, and I remember back even 20 years ago, the nightly news or the newspaper, we read it, we took it as fact, and we moved on. We didn't really freak out so much about the political landscape, whereas now, we just finished Thanksgiving, and if there wasn't a high percentage of arguments and fights over Thanksgiving dinner, I don't know anything to be true. But I feel like now with the amount, there was no social media back then, right? There was CNN, there was Fox, and actually back then they were both pretty down the middle.
I think radio was the birthplace of what we would now call political media and social media. I think that stuff lived typically on the radio prior to the internet.
The commentary shows, the Rush Limbaughs of the world.
And in print media, I think you saw an interesting evolution as they started to see readership decline, moving from the op-ed page, where I think a lot of political commentary lived exclusively on the op-ed page, to starting to see value-driven language in news stories within news articles. And I think that eroded people's trust in journalism as a whole. And I think, otherwise really strong journalistic sources started getting lumped in with cable news and, network news and other places like that.
Yeah. I think it's funny, too, that you can hear somebody say something, there's tape of them saying it. 10 years later, they will have the complete opposite take, say they never said that. Someone will show a clip of it, and people will still believe they never said that because they say they never said that. I don't know how you get around that.
Veracity, like
Yeah.
like something being true or false.
Yeah, or like in the beginning of Trump's first term, the Kellyanne Conway using the term alternative facts.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to, do people care?
Yeah.
If
That's a good
you
point.
haven't read it, I highly recommend J.D. Vance's book Hillbilly Elegy. No matter how you feel about J.D. Vance, it's one of the last third of it is one of the most informative and help you understand where a lot of those particular folks are coming from. At one point, he talked about birtherism, and he talked about the fact that hillbillies, and that's JD's term, by the way, for anyone living in the coal belt, hillbillies knew that Obama was born in America. They knew that he was born in Hawaii, but birtherism, he felt so alien to them culturally that they didn't care. So they supported the false notion that he wasn't born in America. And seeing that attitude of, yeah, we know, we just don't care. I think you have to respect that, or not respect it so much as understand it in order to understand what alternative facts are and why otherwise intelligent people that you might be sitting at a dinner table with will believe something patently false.
Right. And I think the other thing with the hillbillies, JD's word, not ours,
Yeah.
is that more of a cultural thing or is that a racism thing? Because a lot of folks
I spend a lot of
saw
time in that
Obama
world.
as he's from Kenya, he's African, he's a,
I spend a lot of time in that world, and I think it's a lot less racism, good news, than people think, and I think it's a lot more tribalism. It's much more tribalism than racism. He could have been white, and the same thing would have happened. There's a lot less direct racism in quote-unquote red states than people believe there is. When you see people, that their best friend is someone of another race, and meanwhile they'll have stickers that say something hateful on their car.
right.
It's tribalism. It's that gave them a sense of belonging and a sense of hope.
And I think I'm wondering if as we get further down, I don't see a stop. I don't see a stop of everyone has a podcast. Everyone the podcasts are now, I think, taking over as a significant part of media, and I think people are starting to look at podcasts as news. They look at Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan many times has blurted out a comment, and maybe 10 minutes later his producer will say, hey, that's actually not true, and he'll look at it and bring it up and say, oh, I guess it's not true. Oh well. Do we think people like the Joe Rogans of the world, but he's the biggest, obviously, but even people that are doing that, do they have any kind of responsibility? It's like, speaking of veracity, do they have any form, or should they have any kind of personal or professional responsibility to try to say things that are actually true?
No.
Or are they just looking for the clicks and the listeners and the
podcaster
mind
like
share?
A podcaster like Joe Rogan never set out to be a source of information, probably, right?
Right.
And so the fact that people are dumb enough to take a podcast as their source of information, the problem isn't Joe Rogan there. The problem is, why haven't we taught people to find and leverage better sources of information?
And why does their vote count as much as ours?
Yeah.
Their vote is equal to ours. And the fact that, well, actually, the vote only matters in about a handful of states anyway. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking at podcasts for anything other than entertainment, because that's all it is commentary. It's just one big op-ed.
It's the op-ed, but also I would go further and I would challenge the person who's taking their news from that. I don't think they should be doing anything other than laughing at the funny parts of something like that anyhow, and they should know better.
So, I mean, the big difference of straight up news versus commentary, that those lines get blurred.
Yeah.
Especially on channels, on the cable news channels, those lines get very blurred because you can go from a straight up news segment of a news story about a wildfire or sadly a school shooting, and that becomes much more factual, even on Fox. And then, but in the very next segment, what you just saw straight up news, the very next segment could be op-ed, and you don't even realize it, and you take what they're saying as news.
Think back.
It's almost like there should be a warning label. This is news, and then this is commentary.
Who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Those are the famous journalism.
Which ones of those are news?
I think altogether, maybe. But I don't know.
I would argue that if you're looking for factual news, who, what, and when, or that's what. If you're looking for unbiased news, if you're looking for what happened, then you're looking for sources that stick to those questions.
Yeah.
But the why and how, I think that's slipping into the news for the purpose of ratings. I think that's what's behind the drop in quality, or at least perceived quality. I think real journalism definitely still exists, and there are people who are proud journalists that do great work. But I think the line being blurred between who, what, and when, and
the why and the how.
What?
Well, especially the why. It's interesting. The why almost must slip into an op-ed type scenario, because who's to say what the why is?
Well, if you're covering, for example, the Israeli situation, why could be an incredibly divisive question, or you might not have. There might not be one answer to the question of why or how.
Right.
But people are going to sure sound confident when they tell you why or how, right?
Right. But they're going to precede it with the who, what, and when.
And I think their ability to critically determine where the break is in that. How do you get your news now in 2024? What are your sources for factual news? I mean, there's no alternative facts when it comes to sports scores, or
right.
I got a whole other issue with the weather. I mean, it's just...
Of course. I watch a lot of YouTube, but YouTube, short form video is the format, I guess we'd call YouTube, right?
Okay.
So short form video is interesting if, again, you trust and believe in the source, and then you can also, because I would say the vast majority of YouTube, when you look at the news part of it, not the Mr. Beast and all those guys doing fun stuff, the guys that are shooting watermelons and things like that, but or building houseboats, but the people that are pretending or trying to be news, that are just, like you said, a middle-aged white guy saying it in front of a camera and a microphone. Does that have more validity than anybody else? A lot of people won't say that. They won't make the difference. I will make the difference. I will say, if it's from what I consider a reputable source. What do I consider a reputable source? I think that answer is different for everybody. But me personally, it would be, have I checked what I've heard from these guys? Have they said anything that I've been like you said before, gee, that doesn't sound right. Let me look at that.
Do you ever look at sites or resources for media bias? Do you ever look to check to see where sources are? I know that there are a bunch of sites online that tell you both the veracity of a source and the political skew of a source.
Right. I look more for the veracity. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. As far as I like to hear what people are saying. So, for example, I'll look at a Midas Touch Network. I'll look at a Brian Tyler Cohen, and Adam Mockler, who's part of Midas Touch. But these types of guys who are definitely on the progressive liberal side, but they're pretty factual.
So if you say that, right, how do you counter a selectivity bias?
Well, then I would go to, and I would purposely seek out Fox News type people.
But they've decided what issue you're going to consider news and what you're going to think about.
They're deciding what we're going to think and ostensibly care about.
Where do you go for world news?
Yeah, I go to YouTube and I look for the sources that I feel are
so there are some great news aggregators
real
out there. some really great news aggregators. There are, if you look at those sites, you can find, number one, we're on BevCam today. Local news is still considered highly accurate.
Right.
So even up to the city and regional level, parts of local newscasts are not, but for the most part, they're going to play it pretty straight. The international services of global news networks are generally very straight down the middle. So you're going to get facts there. You're going to get the biggest events that are happening in the world. And then
example.
The BBC World News.
I was just going to say BBC World News
is wonderful. Also, American media outlets. If you look at the big newspapers' foreign editions, the politics drips right out of it. It's pretty fascinating. Page 2 of the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal is a great example because a professor of mine once said, follow the money. If you want to know what the truth is or the news is, follow the money. The Wall Street Journal and Financial Times each have, in the Wall Street Journal, it's their page 2. And page 2 is one page of a newspaper. And if you read that every day, you'd be fairly well informed on world and national news.
When I was doing a little bit of research for our segment, I saw that the top 3 print newspapers are number 1, Wall Street Journal, number 2, New York Times, number 3, the hotel floor mats of USA Today. I know how USA Today got in there, but I was surprised. I was genuinely surprised that Wall Street Journal was number 1.
First of all, I'm going to unpick on USA Today because have you read USA Today in the last 10 years?
No, not since I stopped traveling.
Some of the cleanest reporting you'll come across. They still have the 4 colored sections. It's color coded for our ease of use.
I think red is sports.
But that front section is a very apolitical and very well prioritized coverage of the day's events.
And I think our attention span in 2024 has gotten to the point where USA Today articles are a much easier read because they're short.
Yeah.
They're short.
Yep.
The New York Times you could read and finish up on page A38 and it's 2 full more pages of that whole story. And that's a lot longer than your subway ride's going to be or even your flight.
Right. The Wall Street Journal, getting back to that, when you were mentioning that as being one of the largest, it's, people have so much of their lives tied up in their investments.
Right.
And so what world events are going to skew your money? What world events are going to alter markets? That's going to give you a pretty good idea and a pretty unbiased idea because we all have retirement accounts. We all have investments. It's going to give you a pretty clean idea of what's going on in the world.
Well, like for example, if you're heavy on tech stocks, you're going to obviously look at what's going on with trade within China and with Taiwan, and look at something like the CHIPS Act, where we're making more semiconductors and things of that nature here in the U.S. And those are things you're going to probably focus on those stories. But whereas if you're heavily in oil or fossil fuels, I guess, you're going to be paying obviously way more attention to what's going on in, say, the Middle East.
The Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times do a wonderful job of giving you both of those perspectives. And then you don't need to do as much fact-checking on veracity.
Now, here's the problem with that. Wall Street Journal, it doesn't have a social... They're on social media, but Wall Street Journal doesn't have their own social media.
They have a paywall. And they have a notoriously strong paywall.
Well, yeah. So I mean, you have to subscribe, which is fine. They're a business. They're a for-profit business.
Yep.
Let's not forget that. And the other thing is that they may have their reporters may put a 2 or 3 liner into say X. I hate calling it X. Can you just call it Twitter? No,
yeah, you can just call it Twitter. It's fine.
They may put a 3-line thing and then link to their story. The vast majority of folks aren't going to be able to read that story. And then they're going to go down to someone, maybe they'll look in the comments and they're going to believe what's in the comments.
Yep.
So I almost find it having the opposite effect when a real news source puts something out, then there's that paywall. Then they just stick with social media. They never leave it.
Oh, a lot of them are sensitive to that when it comes to aggregators and will give you at least the first several paragraphs. So you can get the lead from those sources for free.
Right. And now, kind of tying it all back in, would you say if say 10 years ago, our the entire media industry was at let's say a 5, right in the middle, let's say they were, and now we're that's 2014. Now in 2024, where would you grade them versus 10 years ago? 5 being in the middle, obviously 10.
Are we talking strictly political bias?
No, I'm talking strictly the value of the information being put out there. You know, how good of a job are they doing overall?
Executing well and doing a good job are two very, very different things. I think a lot of journalistic institutions are doing an even better job today than they were doing 20 years ago.
Now, is that because they can't get away with it? Some people would just read stuff and just believe it, whereas now it's very difficult for an article to skew. They can skew. We just got interrupted by Siri. What was Siri just listening to?
She was going to answer the question for you.
That's pretty. That's actually interesting. That's a whole nother episode. Yeah. But I think it's gotten. I think it's gotten worse. I think it's gotten worse because of the lack of. And I don't want to say regulations because I don't want everything to be regulated. I don't want the government to be in charge of all these things. But I just wish people had a little bit of, what's that word? Integrity?
I think there's a lot of that there, but I think that's the reason.
But does it get overshadowed?
Return to J.D. Vance's book with me for a moment.
The fictional, yeah. Go ahead.
But if a significant part of your population can hear a fact and not care, do you risk losing their viewership and their audience by playing it straight, or do you cater to them slightly?
Well, I wonder if that's your audience, wouldn't you control the narrative? So if you wanted to, you could play.
You
it
are
straight.
controlling the narrative.
If you wanted this populace to be skewed, you would put the information out in that manner. Like, for example, every military base only shows Fox News in the mess halls, for example. So they're only getting Fox News's take.
Right.
Good, bad, or indifferent?
Bad.
Bad.
That is
very bad.
Any low quality source that people don't have a choice about having in front of them is obviously bad, because eventually you're going to start believing a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be something there, right?
Right.
But I think you also have to acknowledge the fact that media is a business. Social media is a business, and so there's going to be a natural skew towards the audience. It's not great. It's not ideal.
The news on social media used to be people speaking truth to power, but now it's become monetized. YouTube is now heavily monetized,
especially when it turned out that truth to power wasn't necessarily true.
Right.
I think when people started performing well financially by saying ludicrous things, and that their echo chambers got so large that they were bigger and as big as established media outlets that had journalistic integrity, I think that made those media outlets start to look in the mirror and say, hey, maybe we need to diverge a little bit from our standards, which is a bad thing.
Right. It is a bad thing. I think we've got a lot to think about.
I think so too.
Yeah. And that's it.
Let me ask you one final question.
Okay.
How can I be a better consumer of media? What can I do to be a better consumer of media? What can you do?
I think we could just make sure that we try to look at multiple sources.
Okay.
I think multiple sources is the key to consuming media. If you want not alternative facts, if you want to find out, but at the end of the day, I think then you have to make your own, the whole do your own research. But if you're only researching one side, that's not really doing research. That's not doing your own research. That's listening to the same type of people saying the same type of things. But I think if we want to be good consumers of media, that we have to, even sometimes when we feel like we have to hold our nose, we have to look at both sides.
My
And there's not three sides. It's usually it's two.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think also choosing quality sources to start the process of informing yourself with. If you find that you are getting most of your news from short form video on social media, then go find an aggregator. Go find a source. Go to the Wall Street Journal's website. Page 2 is free. It's on there. You can read that every morning within 10 minutes. You can go to Apple News and you can give it a whole bunch of sources, and it will give you both sides of everything that you need. Find an aggregator, find an unbiased news source, start the process of informing yourself there. There are also sites that will tell you if a story is being covered across the political spectrum, so you can find out if you are getting hit with selectivity bias.
Right.
So we all need to be better consumers of media and better consumers of news moving forward, because people want to mess with you.
Yes.
There's money in messing with you.
There's a lot of money in messing with you.
Yeah, it's you in particular.
Yeah, I'm very easily messed.
I encourage folks to open up and read and watch folks with different point of views. If you watch only one source, then that source controls what you consume. Branch out a little. Anyway, that's our show. Everyone stay safe and stay happy, and we're going to see you next time. That's right. We can see you.